Welcome to the October 14th edition of the Finance Committee for the City of Port Orchard. I'm Mark Trenary. We've got some other attendees here. Please recognize yourselves.
I'm Fred Shank, council member.
Yeah, John Morrissey, council member. It's probably you next, Mayor.
Oh, okay. Mayor Rob Consu.
Noah Crocker, Finance Director.
Rebecca Zick, Deputy Finance Director.
Dennis Ryan, Public Works Director.
All right, with that, let's move to the agenda. The first topic on the agenda is sales tax and REIT reports. And Noah, you bring it. There we go.
I'll pull it up. Yep. So majority of our meeting today is mainly going to be focused on the 25-26 biennial adjustments. But I did want to briefly look at the sales tax and REIT. So for September, we actually had a positive number this month, the first month this year. Again, still flat. $524 is not a huge positive number, but overall we're flat. We're negative 3.4% for the year of actuals against 2024. But our budget, when compared to our budget, we were 7.82%, trending higher than budget for fiscal year 2025. So from a budgetary perspective, everything is still good, and we just continue to kind of monitor actual activity against 2024. When we look down to REIT, we had a red month, but overall we're 13% higher than we were in 2024 actual activity, and 36% higher than our budget. So that's still really good. Overall for 2025, we've eclipsed our 25 REIT budget. So we have collected $1.618 million, and we budgeted 1.6. So that's great news as we move and hopefully start to receive the rest of our biennial budgeted amount.
Director Crocker, the September numbers for, let's say, just sales tax revenues, that's reflective of June or July's actual receipts?
60 days behind.
So what we collected in September was, or what we report in September was collected in July. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Activity of July. Yeah. Sorry, I was trying to think through the
activity. And I know you said it before. I'm trying to notice where that change happened and maybe where we were economically in July. So, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
So just for record, Noah, that holds true for REIT as well, correct?
Yes. No, it doesn't.
No, REIT comes from the county predominantly, so it is for the actual month received.
Okay. Thanks, Rebecca.
She's the smartest one on the floor. That's why we invited her.
We need to have one.
Somebody's got to lead this journey.
So the only other comment I want to make before we get into the budget is I just want to point this out real quick. When we look at dollars to budget, we're 423,000 above kind of the same period of time. And in the budget amendment, I have proposed capturing $300,000 of that sales tax revenue. So bringing additional $300,000 into our 25 budget. So just keep that in mind as we kind of walk through the budget documents. So first here's an agenda just specifically for the mid-biennial review. We're going to take a look at the calendar. We'll walk through the income statement, which kind of gives you at the high level the impact to all the funds. And then we'll look at the actions already taken by the city. So these are typically what we call cleanup items, things that have already come to council, contracts that weren't necessarily called out in the budget. So we're just cleaning that up. So that's where you'll hear me use the term cleanup. Fred, do you have your hand up?
You're muted, Fred.
I'm sorry, I was trying to turn off audio. I hit the raise hand by accident.
Okay. All right. So then we'll look at new expenditure requests. And again, these are things that directors have kind of gone through their budget and identified as some new additional needs and or cleanup stuff within their budget. We include transfer summary. We might walk through it just briefly just to get you familiar with it. It's more of an accounting reconciliation for us. So it's not super helpful, but it does show you that we are making transfers as a part of this amendment to pay for things from one fund to another. We'll look at the revenue adjustments, and there we can talk a little about what I was talking before. And then if we have time, we'll look at the overall impact to our capital program. Okay, so we'll start with the calendar. So far, again, September is when we first put out the report. We push the request out to directors. They respond. We walk through that, their responses with the mayor, and then we start to develop the budget. And so we've been working the last 2 weeks to reconcile all the decision points with the mayor. And so we have a proposed amendment to the budget. Here we are, October 14th, reviewing this with the Finance Committee. Tonight, we're going to have our public hearing on the revenue sources, which will lead to property tax setting and the property tax levy on the 28th. So just want to note that there. Next week, we'll take, so after today's meeting, hopefully you guys will give us guidance, feedback on the presentation of the materials or anything changes that need to be incorporated into the budget amendment. And we'll bring that to next week's work study session where we'll brief full council. So that's what I'm looking for today from you guys is feedback on the materials, and then of course taking anything you say into consideration as far as the amendments. The 28th. Okay, as part of next week's, we'll also have a hearing on the budget, but that'll be all wrapped in one. We'll have the hearing and presentation with the full council. The 28th is when we will set the property tax levy, and then if everything continues smoothly today and next week, we will have the ordinance prepared and ready for council to adopt the mid-biennial amendments, and we will have wrapped up that process for the year. All those effects we go into January. So pretty straightforward schedule. Any questions on the schedule right now or at this time?
So the only question I had to the schedule was around adoption of the budget versus like the hearing for it is tonight.
For
Right.
revenue. Tonight's only the revenue
Gets
piece of
a
it
hearing.
gets a hearing.
Okay.
Then we bring the budget process forward. We need
Okay.
we need the revenue approved before
To be able to
authorize
set the
money
levy.
to
set the levy.
build
Yeah.
a budget, build a budget. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and they actually operate under different RCWs. So you have adopting your property tax levy is its own standalone process. And so that's what we're doing tonight is holding the public hearing on revenue sources for the city on the general fund, and as well, which will lead to the property tax setting. You can almost think that as a separate process itself.
Okay. But the rate in which we set isn't tied to the actual budget then?
No, it is, because
Okay.
the levy we set will establish the amount of money we will be able to collect in 2026.
Okay.
And so that is in the budget, and then we use this process of setting the property tax levy to adjust whether our property tax budget for 2026. So you'll see there'll be a little bit more revenue anticipated for 2026 based on the new levies that we have received from the county.
Okay. So we're going to set that rate based off of this budget, but are we already at the max? I mean, we get a max increase of 1%, right?
Plus new construction.
Plus new construction. Yeah. So that's why I was just curious. How do we have that and put that out there when we haven't finalized that number yet?
Yeah, so okay, recall, Rick, when we build the biennial budget for revenues, we put in estimates of what we anticipate, right? So now this is just a moment where we actually get closer to the estimate for property tax collections for 2026, because now we have better information. The county is actually giving us what our maximum levy could be. And so we're incorporating that information into this proposed amendment. And you'll see it's not a lot more revenue anticipated, but it's a slight more, mainly because of new construction.
Okay.
Actually, all due to new construction on this particular property tax levy.
Okay. I might need a one-off on that on a side just so I can understand better the true nuts and bolts of that.
Yeah.
We can't do the expenditure side till we know what the revenue side is. So revenue comes
So,
first.
and that's what I'm, okay, but again, we're asking for a public hearing on that tonight when we haven't necessarily set that.
Well, you wouldn't, because we're holding the public hearing, then you take action.
Okay,
That's the same with any public hearing.
I guess that's true, now that you're saying that, right? Like,
The
I'm just trying to
the
think
action
if,
happens afterwards.
if I'm sitting in the audience, how do I best give public input? Yeah, it's,
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
so
and-
it's a fair question. So the way we typically handle it, I think we open the public hearing first, and then I walk through the presentation. So we walk through all the revenue sources, as well as what we anticipate the property tax levy to be for 2026. At that point, the presentation would end, and we would open it up to the public for any of their feedback or comments. And that is the public hearing part. And then
if
we
we
won't
decide
adopt
to
it.
change that levy rate as part of the budgeting process between whenever we adopt that levy rate and look at this, can it change from the public hearing, or do we have to have another public hearing, I guess is my question.
It should change. I mean, we're gonna take, it's new, primarily new construction is what I'm hearing. Is there, what would change?
Yeah, I guess we're walking down a theoretical, and I don't
Again,
know. I
This
suppose
is
if
just
you,
me for understanding
yeah,
and how it all
yeah,
works. out.
yeah,
Sorry.
I'm not sure. We've never been in that spot where the council have
Yeah.
deviated from what the
What they-
levy
Okay,
is.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. Additionally, does that ring true tonight? Because I did notice on tonight's agenda, we're going to adopt the sewer rates before we adopt the sewer plan.
I
being
think
in
the sewer
order.
plan's first on the agenda.
I'm pretty
No,
sure.
the other way around, we have to adopt a rate to fund a plan.
Well, they aren't necessarily
early.
connected. I mean,
Okay.
the plan is the plan, and the rates are the rates. They're two different actions, really.
Okay.
But I think in the
Okay.
agenda, we do have the plan going forward first, and then the rates, would naturally be second because that's supported by the plan.
I double checked that. I had it in my head the other way earlier, but that doesn't mean that I'm accurate.
Oh, I think at one point it was, and
Okay.
then I asked to
And
move it
then
up.
you
So I'm not
changed
sure
it.
if it,
Okay, perfect.
yeah, I'm not sure if it got there, but I thought it did.
Okay.
So then, yes, then on the 28th, we had adopt property tax levy as well as the biennial budget, two separate actions. Okay, so the first thing I kind of walk through is the income statement because it gives you real quick a high level impact to the city and to the funds. So I'm hoping you guys had time to kind of walk through these documents. If not, you have them. And then this will be really important for next week's conversation with the full council. So Finance Committee gets a little more time with the documents. But overall, what you can see here is that we are increasing our budgeted revenues by $9.5 million and increasing our expenses by $9.5 million. Again, we'll walk through what those are. Majority or the significant portion of those expenditures are going to be on the capital side. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, I think the only question I had was, I'm looking at ending funding balances, right? I don't love even where we left these end fund balances in the original budget versus where they're at. And I think my biggest concern is Fund 111. Other than that, they're all down just a hair, but that one's the biggest delta.
Yeah, so we can. Do you want to go to Fund 111 first, or do you kind of want to walk through each one?
I wasn't sure. I'm sorry. The way you were letting that out is I didn't know if you were going through each one individually or just bring up the ones we wanted to talk about. So
I was going to go through at a high level on the
Okay.
income statement, and then we'll go into the detail on a couple of pages
Okay.
later.
then get to it when we get to it.
But if you have concerns about 111, that's great. We can specifically speak to those ones.
And
like, yeah,
111 is the water operating fund, correct?
No, I believe he says the impact fee fund, which is
Impact fee
a fund
fund.
only for capital projects. So
Okay.
in a perfect world, that's money being received and then transferred out to capital projects, to support capital projects. So you can see from the general fund, the overall impact is we are budgeting an additional $1.9 million of revenue to come into the general fund and $2 million of expenses to go out. So roughly a $76,000 deficit from revenue to income. So it's gonna be a slight reduction in ending fund balance. Similar story with street. Again, we're bringing in some new revenue. That's property tax, significant. Well, we'll go through the revenues, but a small impact to the fund overall. And again, I think what's important as we go through these, the task is that this is not a new budget, right? Directors understood that they have a 2-year budget. This is just merely kind of looking at where they are. Is there small adjustments that need to be made? Are we truing up things to actions that the council has already taken? And we're recognizing those impacts. So I wouldn't expect to see a huge swing in our operating funds. I would expect to see large increases in our capital project funds as we get prepared to move towards construction. If we're completing the design phase and moving towards construction, we've only funded design. So now this is an opportunity to fund construction. So you'd actually see kind of larger budgetary authority for those construction purchases, payments. So that's what we kind of observe here. Again, Criminal Justice Fund, this is a reduction of $50,000. We are no longer a high crime city, so that's good on one hand. On the other hand, it means that we do not receive $50,000 in revenue per year. So we had to reduce our revenue for both 25 and 26 on that category. You'll see nothing here for 108. All right, here's impact fee fund. So let's just talk about this one real quick. $3.7 million. Again, this is all the revenue we receive when development is occurring, and they're paying their transportation impact fees, their parking impact fees. Those monies are receipted into this fund, and the expense side is transferring the money out of this fund to a capital construction fund to pay for a capital project. So right off the bat, you can tell that we have identified that we are moving forward with some capital projects, or maybe there's some additional costs with capital projects. In particular, this $3.7 million, 3.6 million is for the SR 166 Bay Street construction project, the road. And the other 129,000 is for the community event center being paid for from park impact fees.
Design work.
Design work, yeah. So this isn't a concern from my perspective, as we want to spend that money. It's coming in to be spent on capital construction projects. So that means that we are moving forward with projects. So a reduction in the fund balance just means we have the money and the projects are ready to move forward. I hope that clarifies a little bit, John, but we can come back to the capital side more.
Yeah, it is. I mean, I'm just worried about our overall balances as a whole, right? And so I don't like leaving less than what we had. I understand the use and that we're utilizing these the way we want to. I just, fiscal conservancy, making sure that we have plenty of balances.
John, we have very, very healthy fund balances other than the water operations fund. We're meeting, we've got reserve
the police one
requirements.
looks a little bare too. We got 47.
But we shouldn't be saving impact fee. We're collecting those to mitigate the impacts in our community. And as soon as we're ready to build a project, we need to spend those dollars, as fast as we can, because we're building roads, we're building, whatever, infrastructure that are related to growth, the impacts from growth.
I
Which
want to
are
echo
huge in our
what John
community.
says a little bit. I also have some concern. It appears that for the majority of our fund balances, where our expenses are exceeding our revenues. And so it's just a little bit concerning from an outside looking in, or from our positions anyways. As business people, we don't like that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think that's a good point to make. And I would ask the finance committee to make that point maybe next week with the full council, that there is a difference between a capital fund and a special revenue fund like an impact fee fund. Those are very distinctly different than an operational fund. Operational fund all day long, yeah, that is a concern when your expenses are exceeding your revenues and your fund balances are declining. On the capital or special impact fee funds, no, that we want to spend those money, right? That is the whole purpose of us collecting those money, is to spend it and to spend on the projects we've identified with the community and the capital plans. So that is us delivering projects. That is us delivering this to our building community. So that is what we want to see. And even in the transportation side, there is a 10-year requirement for us to spend those dollars within 10 years. So we track that to make sure that as we collect it, we're not holding on to it forever, that we are redeploying these dollars into community, investing in our community. So that's a good thing. And it's not always obvious if you don't get into the nuts and bolts of capital fund accounting.
I think maybe what would help us as a committee would understanding, and maybe that's something we should just work through as a group. What are where we set some minimum thresholds
Mhm.
for a fund balance, right? And maybe then we can know, or even knowing when I'm looking at 111, all right, well, revenue versus expense, right? So now we're going to spend 3 point whatever million more than revenue coming in this year, right? Ha, ha, are we okay with that, right? That may tell us all this is a story, but maybe that's the story we want to tell.
Yeah.
From a high level and this viewpoint, Noah, I don't know that that's telling us, the end user of this report, what we're looking for, if you get what I'm saying. I don't know what the right number is. We had budgeted for 11 million when we started this budget, and we wanted to leave that fund at 11 million at the end, according to this budget. And now we're making changes to that. And so that just doesn't tell Mark, Fred, and I exactly what we're looking for out of that story.
Yeah, no, so I think this is a great time to have the conversation and clarify that. And I want you get you guys empowered and educated on, especially on these type of funds. So I would just nuance the statement and just, I would tweak what you said, John, just a little bit. I'd say when we set the biennial budget, we anticipated only spend $6 million.
Yep.
Because when we looked at the state of our projects, we were only going so far with design. And I would say we knew that when we came to the biennial, we might need to appropriate more dollars, because hopefully we would be prepared to move forward with our construction projects. We'd be complete with design or right-of-way acquisition phase, and we would be appropriating more dollars to construct those projects. So I think that would be the nuance of this particular fund against just these 111 fund.
I think we're right about the same way, right? Like for me, I got to know what is the minimum we want to leave in that fund, and or what is not, right? And if 111 is zero, again, zero is probably not the right answer there, because we want to have something in that fund. But what is
John,
spoken
it really
for-
is. It could be zero, and it might be next year when we go out to bid on Bethel, and we've got a massive project for Bethel Phase 1, and a major source of funds for it is this fund.
And so that's kind of where I'm trying to get at, Mayor, is that, I think for the rest of us, we're used to looking at an income statement and balance sheet
Mhm.
and knowing where we planned on both of those, and it doesn't work exactly the same. And so we need to be led to the water to understand, all right, well, if $11 million was where we were planning, we can let that get to zero. And that
Mhm.
means we're being efficient, et cetera. We're doing the things we need to, but we don't know where that is in each one of these funds, and or what maybe has already been allocated, even though we haven't spent it. There's just more to that story, I think, than what we're looking at on this page. And
And I think
dial into
Noah
that.
touched on it earlier. It's separating capital funds from operational funds. Your thought process is spot on when it comes to an operational fund, our general fund, our water operations, our sewer operations, our stormwater operations. Those are all operational funds, and we per our policies have reserve requirements, because we have salaries and those type of expenditures to it. These capital funds don't have those type of they're not operational. They're one-time expenditures. We save them up to spend on a large capital project.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so I
So
think,
John, yeah, I think what I heard is we can think about organizing this document a little bit differently.
correct.
Yeah.
That's all. I think it
Okay.
just needs just that much little change for me to better understand exactly what I need out of this. So
Yeah, it's a great conversation because you guys didn't need to understand it.
So is a major portion of that expense, that 3,759,125, is a major portion of that the Bay Street project, the lift
Yes.
that we're pulling money from other funds to do it ourselves because we can't rely on the government to support us on that?
Yeah, it's eligible for traffic impact fees, and we are expending. When we get to the expense side of it, I got a little narrative here that I'll talk through that.
Got it.
And where
Yeah.
we're at.
Yeah.
You're jumping ahead a little bit.
So I'll keep walking down the line here, and I'll try to call this funds specifically, or the ones that are more operationally focused, because those are ones to be more concerned with. Again, 302 Capital Construction Fund. We're not concerned if revenues are exceeding expenses in this fund, because the revenues coming into this fund are generally either grant or transfers in from another fund, and we're just paying for the capital projects going out of this fund. Again, small impact, $75,000, and we'll go into what the requests for additional revenue on and expenses are. Nothing stabilization. Water capital, again, another capital construction fund. So we're collecting water capital CFCs, and the expenses on these are transfers out going to our water capital projects. Debt service is a debt service fund, and you'll see we actually had some savings there, and we'll talk about that. The storm operations fund. So I did want to stop on this one specifically because this is where a significant portion of our revenue adjustments coming from. So when we did the storm rates last year, it wasn't in the timely manner that we needed to have that incorporated into our 2025 budget. So by the time the storm rates got adopted and finalized, we'd already kind of moved through the budget process. So this is our opportunity to now true up our storm rate revenue for 25 and 26 with the actions taken by council. So that's where you're seeing that additional revenue coming in here. Just going to point out any other ones. Nothing super impactful in sewer operating. Some additional expenditure authority, but nice healthy balances, 3.8 million on the operating side. Some additional sewer capital, but that'll be for the capital conversation, and then our ENR fund. So with that, I think it might be helpful to walk through some of the detail. I'll scroll back up to the top here.
And Noah, maybe it would be helpful if I gave kind of a narrative
Yeah.
of where we're about to travel here, because it'll answer Mark's question there. So, so the proposed budget that we're about to present provides additional funding from one-time revenue derived from interest earnings and overperformance in 2025 revenue, a lot of it due to building activity. Sales tax growth in 2025 has been relatively flat, and I believe there's some uncertainty regarding our economic outlook. We need to recognize that one-time revenues are not sustainable to fund future operational needs, are ideally better suited for one-time expenses. The one-time revenues in this proposed budget are roughly $3 million. Some of this revenue is needed to cover increased operational costs, like animal control contract that we've discussed, increases to insurance premiums, and the true up of actual costs from the projected expenditures in 2025. The largest expenditure in this proposed budget is to fully fund the Bay Street reconstruction project with our local dollars, with the exception of $2 million in KRCC funding. I believe the reconstruction of Bay Street is our highest priority for 2026, because without this investment, the community center or any other project downtown can't move forward without the proper infrastructure or a roadway that floods every winter. We have a $1 million award from the state legislature that hasn't been obligated yet, and $3 million award that's tied up in the federal budget process that may have conditions that we might not be able to make. $400,000 of the $11 million needed for the construction of Bay Street will come from our general fund to pay for the new water main in the roadway, because the water fund doesn't have sufficient fund balance to cover this obligation. Once the $1 million in state funding has been obligated, we plan to claw back our local dollars with these funds being needed in the fall of 2026 to complete the design of the Old Clifton water tie. Recently, you approved a contract for a 60% design, and we need to keep that project moving forward. The proposed budget also funds numerous staff positions in nearly all departments. These increases in staff are needed to improve service levels in our rapidly growing city. Any position that is being funded with one-time revenue in the general fund has an additional set aside of salary and benefits for 3 years to insulate us from the event of an economic downturn. Noel will discuss each of these new requests in his presentation, and let me know if you have any questions about what I just told you. Does that answer your question, Mark, that you were
Yes,
about Bay Street? Okay.
yes.
So Noah's next presentation is basically a chart of all of the requests that we got from within the departments, and you're going to see a lot of yellow yeses that I approved many things and only a few red no's. So with that, I'll let Noah drive from here and talk about all the different requests that we got.
Okay. So I'm gonna walk through most of these. I might not do them all because you'll see we'll find a nice little rhythm and you guys will see, so you won't want to talk about everyone, but we will highlight on the larger expenses, but we'll start at the top just to get a feel for how this document flows. So again, these are what we would call cleanup items to the existing budget. So for example, we're starting with payroll. We're making some adjustments to payroll as our cost allocation changed, employees changed, and positions. We just are truing up our payroll to our 25 and 26. Contracts that got approved, Axon into an interview room for the police department. So again, actions already taken by council. The library roof repair, again, council's already issued that contract. We've already done the work, in fact. And so this is to come back and actually authorize the expenditure authority. I would say capture the authorization expenditure authority rather than authorize. 730 Prospect Street. This is some retainage money. So anytime you do a project, we typically have to hold back retainage, which is a small amount of money until the contractors close out with the state for Department of Revenue and L&I. And so the timing doesn't always coincide in the right fiscal year. So you'll see that for both these projects, the Public Works EV charging closeout for the shop, we released retainage. And for the 730 Prospect Street, we released retainage, which we didn't factor into the beginning of the biennial budget because we technically had those projects completed in the prior biennial budget. But it just takes a while sometimes for these contractors to complete all their paperwork with the state. ER&R.
If we back up to that insurance increase, it's blank right now. We know our insurance is going to go up by about 14%. The pool is only going up by 4%, and our experience factor would have kept us below 4%. But over the last couple of years, we have replaced a lot of equipment. And so we have to provide them an asset list of all of the value of all of our assets. And so when you have a truck that we were get rid of that was worth $3,000, and we replace it with a $50,000 truck, and you do a lot of that, that'll be the biggest drive. That's the biggest driver in our insurance rate increase is reevaluating. They reevaluated our assets, and our assets have gone up significantly.
While we're on that topic, Mayor, I don't know. It seems like it should fall to this committee, but in my 2 years almost now, I don't know that we've done a good deep dive into ER&R. I think it would be prudent to do a review of ER&R and make sure that those policies are reflective of where we're at today.
We can do that in a future meeting.
Yep.
Yeah. So John, I made a note to have that as a future meeting topic. It's good. So ER here, cleanup items. Again, these are all items that have already been approved through council through purchase orders. There were just additional costs to acquiring the vehicles, taxes, those kind of things. I will pause here. A fuel costs increase. So fuel, this would be an additional $28,000 for gasoline fuel. Came in quite a bit higher than we budgeted. So we had to correct that for 25 as well as 2026. We expected $33,000 more than we budgeted. We haven't, because we finally got our EV fleet coming online, we finally have a place for EV fuel, if you will, of $30,500. So you can see that's significantly less than gas. And the mayor's asked.
You said 30,000. It's $3,500.
I'm sorry. Yeah, $3,500 is what we anticipate for the cost of fueling our EV vehicles for the year. So the mayor has asked me to bring some more data back to the finance committee, and so we'll put some more information together at a future meeting and tie it in maybe to this ENR. Might be the right place for it.
Yeah, especially with an increase in fuel costs when we've moved to more hybrid and or electric vehicles. While I understand the price of gas is higher, we should be consuming less of it. Also, do we have any type of output in showing our cost savings now that I see that we have a EV power increase line here, but we're offsetting that with our new solar array?
I don't. I will look. They was supposed to go live with the PSE bill. I think September, October. So we should be seeing that credit show up on the bill. So that's what I'm waiting for this month. We should be receiving a credit for all the previous months, but it just takes a while for the billing to flip on. So we are watching that. As soon as that comes on, I would like to report back to you.
Just making sure I'm understanding your question. So John, earlier today when Noah and I were meeting, when we were going through this, I want to know, it's going to take a math equation, but so that we can claw out the cost of fuel. I want an analysis on fuel consumption year over year, and then we can add the cost of the fuel to determine what savings we're experiencing. Your question about the solar array, that doesn't fuel. Well, we have a couple charging stations that meet it, and it's part of that system. It's really for City Hall, and it's an offset to City Hall's power, not just to those charging stations.
Again, yeah, it all kind of works together. You may end up having to look at that by miles driven and compare miles driven to get your costs there. But yeah, you're right. There's a mathematical equation there that we just need to plug in some inputs.
Yeah, and just so you know, we have done that already, but it's several months old when we looked at it, and we did look at miles per gallon, miles driven, if you will, to see the comparison, and the savings were significant. So it's fantastic results, but I want to get a more comprehensive review of it when I have time. And then, yes, I think John understands that the solar power is for the City Hall, but I think he was asking about when that credit would show up on the bill, and it should be coming September, October. So we are waiting for that this month. Okay, other things in ER&R. There were some, again, these are generally unforeseen repairs like safe boat repair, $25,000 for the safe boat repair. Again, already approved by council. Repairs on our vac truck and our sewer truck and our super repairs. These add up to be quite a bit when you get these type of heavy machineries that have costly repairs. Insurance costs, we talked about that. Again, the fleet is transitioning to a newer fleet. So we had a lot of old vehicles that got surplus, and now we got brand new vehicles. So the cost of insurance is going to increase as well. I think those are the important ones for 26 and 25. So moving further down here, we talk about debt payment cleanup. We always review our debt service payments. What did we actually pay versus what we budgeted to pay? And in particular, we were looking for any savings to our water fund, because you'll hear us say that that is the fund that we monitored the closest. And we were able to identify some savings from some of our debt service payments. So we took those, although we are adding new debt to our water fund with Old Clifton Intertie. So we were kind of balancing that out, transitioning from one debt to the other debt. Overall, there was a little bit of savings there on the debt side. But again, these are cleanup items. Also, McCormick Reservoir Agreement, we have an agreement with McCormick that we pay them a certain amount as connections come in. And so this is just us catching up to what we anticipate we'll have paid out for the year of 2025 and 2026. Then, so that's the cleanup section. Generally, just things that council should be have already been aware of throughout the year. And now we're moving into what we call new requests and or department cleanups, cleanup sections. So we'll start with admin. The mayor spoke to this already with council. Animal control increases of $9,200. There's some code publishing, larger DCD code of roughly $8,000. The mayor had requested that Kitsap Housing, we have the contract currently that I understand that they have fully exhausted, although we have not received the invoices yet. We did speak with them and have instruct them what to do, so I just haven't seen those invoices come in. to
And-
satisfy
and
that
that's-
contract.
And that's the $1,406 that
Yep.
can only be spent on, housing, subsidized housing.
Actually, no, it's really KCR, not Kitsap Housing. Kitsap Community
you're correct.
Resources.
Yeah, good catch, Fred.
Kitsap Community Resources. Sorry, I'll correct that. All right. Yeah, and so the mayor had proposed another $50,000 for that organization. I guess this would be an opportunity for you guys to weigh in on that, if you support that or not, because it's a big dollar, and that you can weigh in again next week as well. But those are kind of the head nods.
It's not coming out of our general fund. It is coming out of dedicated dollars that need to be used for those purposes.
It's
Correct.
coming out of the 1406. Is that all we get?
1406.
We get about 60 a year.
Okay.
So that would be a big chunk of it for 1 year.
It does
Yeah.
say it's a general fund, though.
What's that?
Yeah, it is paid out of the general fund because that's where we collect the revenue.
Okay.
Okay.
So, and again, accounting, then we receive it in there and we pay out of there, but it is a restricted funding source in the general fund.
Okay.
Another large expensive city website. We've heard from council, one new website. We have IT and the clerks have been demoing websites. And so we have a budget proposal, 50,000 at the moment. We've talked about this at the beginning of, I missed this point. So these requests do include everything that was on the original, when we developed the original budget, we had a mid-year review list. So this budget doesn't include those items. So this finance budget software request was on that list. We have an estimate of 25,000. Again, this would be a portal, an online website where the public and council and even staff can go to see the budget in real time and a more user-friendly program than just a book or an Excel file. It's actually touch and goes, and we can show some demos of what that would look like. But that was a request, and the mayor approved that forward. Looking at the police department, we got some evidence room upgrades, supplies for cones, officer wellness, radios, additional education, and then some additional expenses for Pro Force. All were recommended to move forward. Community development, they requested for an additional $150,000 for an on-call building consultant, and the park rec open space plan for 75,000. So these are two big asks. The mayor has asked those not to move forward. So that's what the no means. Mayor, I don't know if you want to speak to why you did not approve those to move forward.
Okay, so later on, you're going to see a staff request for a new building official, an additional building official. And so initially Nick had pumping up our consultants farther. And I believe a large part, and matter of fact, I just had a conversation with Eric Campbell about our review consultants, and it's real. I think we've got to get more of this work done in-house versus outside consultants. And so I didn't fund this, but there's a similar dollar amount funding an additional body. Actually, there's a couple different bodies in the DCD department when we get farther into into the presentation. So we're not going to go cold turkey turning them off. I'm just not going to add more to it. And we're going to slowly try to transition to doing more. We're going to do more of this in-house. And
Well, I'm just looking for, it says building code consultant, this is permit review.
This is correct. This is the primarily what our consultants do is plan reviews for us. We do our own inspections. They don't do many. I don't believe they do many, if any, of our inspection work anymore. They have in the past, but this is for plan reviews, and we're planning on hiring somebody and bringing more of that work in-house versus continuing to add more consultants to this to do that type of work.
Okay, yes, please.
Okay. The mayor did ask that, so SmartGov is their current permit software provider, and they had requested some additional training and potentially a financial connector, additional software module. I'd say that finance and DCD still need to work through that, what that looks like entirely, but we asked for an estimate of the cost.
And while it's identified as SmartGov here, it may be Camino. We've got, and I think Nick has spoke to this. We have two systems doing I don't know if it's a 50-50 split or not, but we need to get on one platform because these two platforms don't communicate and it's creating manual processes. So we've got to make a decision, early on in 2026. Are we going to go with Camino? Are we going to go to SmartGov and fully implement the features that one of these two systems have versus being half-hearted in both of them? And I got to close my blinds.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, it seems like we've already made that decision. We're going with SmartGov, doesn't it?
Pardon me, I'm sorry, I stepped away for a second.
It appears the city's already made the decision to go with SmartGov on this.
Not necessarily. I've had a conversation just today with Nick, and they're still evaluating. There's pluses and minuses to both of them, but it may. I'm just pointing out that we're calling and it could be training for the Camino system. It's going to be software training,
Right.
and we're going to do a piece of software to integrate online payments. We just haven't fully, Noah's got to be part of that process too, because it impacts his part of it. But we're working on it. And like I said, we've got to make a decision here fairly soon here on which platform we're going to use and be all in on that one platform.
I have
Right.
a quick question.
Mm.
Noah, does our utility credit card payments, do we charge people the 3% for their credit card's convenience fee?
No,
'Cause
We don't? I thought we did.
we do not.
don't think
It's
we do.
embedded in our rate structure. It's a cost
Oh.
of doing business embedded in our rates.
have we considered?
But we
Um,
do charge the 3% on those that are paying building permits. That is a pass-through cost. And Rebecca, correct me if I said anything wrong there.
Nope, you're correct. The only embedded credit card fees into the rates are the utility customers. Every other fee that's paid at the
Month.
city, whether it's police or DCD or parking permits, they all pay the 3% on top.
Goes addition.
Mm.
And the customer pays that.
Boy, we don't make that easy on staff, do we?
So I did want to circle back to the, so again, this work came out of the lean process that DCD went through a few months ago and reported back. These were some of the recommendations. They wanted to get some budget requests in. They're still working through the process to figure out exactly what the right solution is, especially when it impacts other departments like finance department. So we're trying to work through what that is as they're evaluating different vendors, different software vendors, different approaches and different integrations. But we did ask them to give us a budget impact request. So, we know the council's been supportive of this, but we kind of want to have some money in there available when we're ready to move forward with that decision. So moving on to Public Works, I did ask Dennis Ryan to be here so I can call on him left and right on his requests, and he can actually elaborate a little bit. I'll start walking through, Dennis, and if you feel like you'd like to elaborate, please elaborate. So again, initially facility supplies, building. So as we have acquired new buildings and more buildings, there's additional expenses that are required for maintenance that were not factored into our original budget. So he's planning for that, additional services, HVAC repairs, increases in our janitorial services contracts. Both, I believe we changed our janitor, but then we've also added facilities.
Correct.
Snow, correct? Okay, good. Snow and ice, additional costs, increase in costs for materials.
No, I think we have a correction there. I'm just double checking. We had a de-icer unit. Is this?
It's still on here. Yep.
Okay, okay, so that is increased materials. Okay.
Yep.
Correct. Thank
So we
you.
have we have the materials and then we have the de-icer down below. Additional, so the other thing that we talked about is he's requesting money for additional parks. Again, we just are completing marina, gotten additional park properties to take care of and maintain. Costs have gone up again since we developed the original budget. The largest expense here that, I really wish we could get away from someday, and I talk about this more frequently because it impacts our water fund, is this $270,000 for the Foster pilot project. And I don't know if you want to speak to that specifically, Dennis.
Yeah, no, so absolutely. I hope this is my plan, that this is the last time I come to the city council with the request for additional funds for the Foster consultant fees. That's what this is. This is to get us to the finish line, is my hope. This is for our hydrologist. We are still in the same stages. We have dialogue going with the tribes. We have dialogue going with our two neighboring jurisdictions that have mitigation requirements in their jurisdictions that we need to do. So we've presented our draft mitigation to ecology and the tribes. We are back to reconvening, have a follow-up meeting this week, but this is also securing water rights for the entire city for the next 50 years, even areas that are currently in West Sound that someday will likely be city operation. So this is like 50 years of future water source. So it's not just for today.
And it'll take us 30 years to get the water rights. It feels like it's only been about a dozen, but so, and Noah and I had a lengthy discussion about this today. It feels like our capital fund, because this is growth, this is needed because of growth. And Noah's going to look into this, and he's probably right. Because it's not a tangible asset, it's services. He doesn't believe that we can charge it to the capital side. But it sure feels like something capital should be funding because it's future water, not today's water. But I'm going to defer to the experts in accounting, but he is looking into that, whether or not it's eligible or not to be a capital expenditure. But his reasoning off the cuff was that we don't have anything tangible coming, like a pipe or a pump or of those are typical capital.
That's such a weird one-off. Or could we get like an AG's opinion on that, or what do we do?
Well, it wouldn't be the AG, it'd be the state auditors. But
Yeah, I mean, they have a manual in which they define what is considered a capital asset, and these type of expenses generally are not in all our other projects. Like, you can have a planning phase, but planning is not design. Planning does not produce a capital asset or even work towards it. You really have to get to the actual product. This is just for, I don't even know what it's for. Would you say, Dennis, geological services?
Yeah,
hydrogeological services. So
who's
anyway,
also
we debated this for 20 minutes earlier today, so I'm questioning it, but it appears it needs to land where it's at.
And the reason why I say AG is it came out of Foster decision that came out of the Supreme Court. I would think that somebody needs to interpret that.
Yeah, but it's an accounting rule. It doesn't have whether or not how we pay for it. So anyway, more to come, but I don't like it either. I'd like to pay for it differently, but at this time it needs to be paid for how Noah is proposed.
So we have some more costs, street striping and buttons contract. We did the work this year and they cost more. So Dennis has requested additional funding to pay for that in 2026. And I think some of this is to actually true up what we paid for in 2025. The signal maintenance contracts have gone up. We have some money in here for office furniture. Mayor, I don't know if you wanted to speak to that a little bit because it's tied in.
Later on, you're going to see a request for a body for the clerk's office that is a communication specialist. Probably about half their time will be doing communications, and the other half is, doing clerk's duties. And we don't have a place to house anybody, so we got a a 2 desk cubicle, and we need to make it a 4 desk cubicle farm just outside of my office in HR. And a couple years ago, we were going to add a staff that didn't get approved, and we got a quote, and it was about $12,000 to add those additional desks. So I'm hoping it's about 15. So, but anyway, so that's what it represents is the desks and a cubicle system for 2 desks, cubicle system for 2 additional desks. So one for the added employee, and it just makes sense if we're going to do it, you do it in pairs. So we'll have capacity for one more body at some point here, and then we're pretty much full up on this side of the building. And then I'll speak to the next one. So you've got C75,000 for Lloyd Parkway. There down below you see a 150. It's a no. So Dennis asked for 150 in his budget. There's already in the purchase money, there was already 75, and this budget is proposing getting him the other. So we're fulfilling his request of 150,000 for the improvements that we need to make out at the newly purchased building. But some of it was already in the budget, and so that's why the 150 is no and the 75 is yes, because it's being paired with 75 that you previously authorized.
Any questions on that before I keep going?
I had a quick question up top. What was facility services at 90?
That includes all of our new utility increases for the new buildings. We are tapped out on our facility budgets. We're doing a lot more. We're finding things and we're doing things. So that's everything from your paying utilities. You also see supplies has increased. So what else is services? That's all of our contractors. If we don't have the ability to do it with our electrician, plumber, HVAC. Actually, there's a separate line item for HVAC because we called that out.
Yeah, so it'd be utilities and ongoing maintenance, and we added another building.
Elevator, which is a big drain.
Okay.
I think the next big, we're gonna buy some leased park equipment for one new park. Which park are you proposing that for, Dennis?
So we need to do some improvements with Van Z Park. Our swing set, we had to take it offline right now. We are looking to replace maybe a couple other amenities in the park. So what you'll see, our plan, if it works out, is that we'll do containment that looks really nice. We'll put the correct fall protection and then get the swing back up. We've also had a tire swing there that hasn't been up. John Hubbard, our parks lead, said that swing's been gone since he was a kid. So we want to get parks play equipment back up and running.
And then I see a trailer for pressure washer. What are we pressure washing? Because I get in trouble from the county every time I pressure wash something.
Yeah, because they want you to do erosion control and put your filters in your catch basins. Yes. No, so we do quite a bit of pressure washing. We do the downtown pressure washing. We are working on getting a new bucket lift truck, pressure washing all of our wells. Every time we pressure wash, if there isn't, our reservoirs, if there isn't a water source, which is quite a bit of the city, we have to rent a trailer, and it's very expensive. And this trailer is low maintenance. If the motor burns up, we throw another Home Depot Honda motor on there for a few $100. The trailer should last a couple decades. So
Okay.
it just long run cheaper.
And then Dennis, will you talk a little bit about this Gibbons Park master plan for 150,000?
Yeah, so we're getting ready to, the Recreation and Conservation Office has a cycle for grant funding. In order to have a grant funding, you have to have a current master plan if you're going to seek something like that. We don't know what it is yet for Gibbons Park. With Little League the way it is and Pee Wee and the shared use, there could be opportunities for improvement there if the council wishes to have a different desire for that park. playground improvements. There could be possible improvements to the active club, but there's a lot of potential in that area and in that neighborhood specifically. So we're going to try to do it cheaper than this, but it also includes an ADA transition plan, how to make that entire park ADA compliant. And I will say master plan tools, if the city ever does discuss like a parks district, these plans that the community engages in go a long way because this is what they want.
And Dennis, I can't remember what the locate module OpenGov. I said no, but I can't. From our prior discussion, what is that one again?
It was an integration between our current asset management system and our 811 utility locates, which is it's time.
right.
It's time. But there was other things that were higher priority that we are okay with.
And then the smart locks is just adding a couple. There's a couple of locations where we still have keypads, and the keypads are fine. It's not a priority. It'd be a nice to have. It's not a have to have. It's not that the locations aren't secure. They aren't key card access.
And then the splash pad controller, I think, is that the next one?
Yep,
Yeah.
keep going. You're doing good.
So that's just that's an automation, right? So that is an automation, so we can remotely, even with the manufacturer, troubleshoot the splash pad. If you recall, this summer we were down almost a week. When they built it, they didn't have the BEX 3 there at the BEX 2. So this is just an automation, real time software upgrades, just continuity of operations to keep it going. And that's also your chlorine information, right? So you get that BEX 3. I don't have to have somebody go out there every single day to monitor the chlorine.
Remind me again what the Q's push camera is.
This is the push cam. We had one. It burned up.
Yeah, I now remember.
It's just for like side laterals. We have a camera TV truck, side lateral sewer connections. Even some stormwater is just too small to TV. This is a push cam that does the trick.
Yeah, so
And
we have a crawler camera that's bigger for bigger sewer lines. This is something the size of about diameter of a gardener snake, and it's got a little camera on the end, and it allows us to TV smaller lines. And then his last one is de-icer has just been a game changer, and we've got 2 tanks, Dennis. De-icer.
we have one. We have one
we only have
de-icer
one.
tank.
Okay,
And we
it's-
have to go to the county to fill it up every time. So it's a constant go to the county, lose an hour transit each way. We are adding tremendous amounts of lane miles to the city. So
So that's that brine that you see, the brine stripes that we put down, and it really has been a game changer. And then when we get a snow event, the snow doesn't stick to the road like it did before we had this type of equipment. So really good piece of equipment for public safety.
So is this a replacement of an existing tank, or are we growing the size of this replacement tank?
this is actually a new tank. This is an additional tank.
Larger?
Similar size.
Yeah.
We're
I
running
think-
1,000 gallons now. This will be another 1,000 gallons.
So
So
we'll
Dennis, correct me if I'm wrong, the one we have is getting in rough condition too. So likely in the next budget, you might see another one replacing the one we have, correct?
It's already in the budget. No, I believe with the parks modification, or sorry, the fleet modification we did, I think there was a de-icer included in that.
Okay,
Are-
so that's,
Are,
So-
am I speaking wrong, Noah? Sorry.
I will have to look.
Okay.
We might come across it here, but I can't recall if it was the DS replacement was
Okay.
included in there or not.
okay. If it's not, we're gonna be looking at replacing that because
Yep.
it's starting to wear out.
And I will also say that extra de-icer will keep us from having to put as much, you're always gonna have to put some abrasive solids on the road, but you're gonna reduce that amount of abrasives like gravel that goes out, and it's gonna be less cleanup at the end of the day.
So we're ready to move on to the next page. So the next
Yep.
one, said no one. It's not that we can't afford a new mower. It was really more. So every time we get a new parks person, they don't like the mower we have. And so when I first became mayor 10 years ago, Bill wanted a new riding lawnmower, and our riding lawnmower was dying. So we bought a $30,000 mower. Then the next person comes, Bill retires, and fast forward about 5 years, and I kept questioning why we had grass clippings everywhere. And I was told, well, our mower doesn't bag the grass. And I'm like, well, why not? So we got a new mower at that time here about 4 years ago or so. And this mower, it works great in the big parks, and it allows them to back up to the trucks and dump the clippings into the back of the truck through an automated process. This mower, we've got some grass at City Hall. We've got some grass now that we're going to start maintaining down on the waterfront, and it's more of a deck type electric mower. I think it's a nice to have. We're just fine continuing to mow the grass with the push mowers in these smaller locations versus having a $38,000 electric deck mower to mow those locations. And so Dennis didn't push back on me too hard.
I also know that technology is going to get even better, so it's not going to hurt us to wait.
And we just spent $50,000 on a new mower already this year.
That was for stormwater.
Oh, that's a roadside mower.
I hear you.
Oh,
Yeah.
the roadside mower was about 160,000.
Yeah.
So
So just some things to highlight here, the overhead oil system, our mechanics currently buy oil by the case for our fleet. And that's really inefficient. And so we're going to put an overhead oil system, just like any service shop has. They, pull the hose down, fill up the oil, and great improvement and then our bucket truck has been dying for a number of years, and this is a very expensive piece of equipment, the 256,000, but that's to allow us to, decorate the Christmas tree, do maintenance on City Hall, work on any of the lighting that's our responsibility. It's not PSE's responsibility with having to rent a piece of equipment. But the bucket truck we have has become not safe, and haven't been utilizing it. The fire department's had to rescue our guys out of it a couple of times.
Yeah, and so to add to that, Dennis, you can speak on this as well. The original budget had anticipated what we call a new hook lift truck, and that was going to be in addition to the fleet as part of the 25-26 biennial budget. Public Works has reevaluated whether the hook lift truck makes the most sense now, and so maybe I'll just leave you there, Dennis, to continue with that.
yeah, so this is also a tool. I mean, this is a tool that's going to be used for all of our reservoir sites. Pressure washing will be able to reach, I think, just about all of our reservoirs top down.
So Dennis, before you go there, so the proposal here is it's a modification. So he's proposing not to do the hook lift truck, and instead do a bucket lift truck. So I just want to make sure that that's clear, that we are shifting gears here. We're not going to do the hook lift truck. It'll be a bucket only truck. And then go ahead, Dennis.
Yep, sorry. No, I'm too far, going too fast. Yeah, so we had the bucket lift, which was a hook lift before. So there was all these implements. We were also using the same truck for our de-icer tanks. So it's full of corrosion. Everything's falling apart. They were smaller capacity dump trucks. So these were 5-yard dump trucks. We now have a 550, and then we also have a 600 available. So we have the capacity. We're not really losing our ability for smaller dump trucks. We did get rid of this 5-yard dump truck, 100% full-time bucket truck, but it'll be versatile across all departments.
So yeah, that's good. I just want to pause and see if the council members have any questions on that modification to the fleet.
And it could also reach the gutters on City Hall and our new solar canopy. And every time I rent one, which is quite frequently, it's $900 a day.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any questions, and makes sense. Finance committee is supportive of that generally. Okay. All right, then we'll move on to the capital project section. again, not a whole lot of things new in the capital project section. We have our community event center. Council have already taken action to approve these amendments 16 through 19. These included redesigning the bathrooms, that whole discussion upstairs. It includes the signage. That is a condition of the grant, the 500,000 plaza grant. Included some design for future furniture, as well as a way to recognize donors. So those amendments have already been approved by council in the RFM contract. This is simply to recognize those expenditures will be coming up, and those will be paid again out of the 111 fund, the impact fee fund that we talked about. That's at roughly 129,000. The bigger project is the Bay Street reconstruction. So we had some budget authority in the 25-26. This proposal generally gets us as close to our project estimate of $11 million to fund that project for construction. So we got a large piece for transportation, $3.6 million for transportation. Again, paid out of the impact fee fund, transportation impact fees. We do have $384,000 of additional money needed for the water component of that project. However, our water operations fund can't absorb that kind of cost. So this proposal has that cost coming out of the general fund. Again, the general fund can contribute money towards other funds, but other funds cannot contribute money to the general fund. So it's an eligible expense, and it's the source that we would need. Storm has a piece of that $515,000 for reconstruction, and then sewer as well has a much smaller piece because we had a larger piece budgeted originally. So these pieces of the SR 1666 gets us as close to our current project estimate, but again, we still haven't gone out to bid, so don't know. There still could be a budget amendment in the future to truly true up to the bid results.
Now you want to talk about those other two culvert projects too that we've gotten grants for?
Yeah, so we do have currently funding for the Ruby Creek Culvert project. The cost of that design is coming in more than anticipated. I think we estimated originally 450,000 was what we had in the budget. So this would add another 250,000 to get us to $700,000 for design. This is also funded 85% by RCO. So the city is kicking in 15% of its local dollars. Similarly, Annapolis Creek Culvert is grant funded up to $500,000. And we have an 85% grant for that one as well. So there will be small 15% of local dollars will contribute to that design phase of that project. And it's all coming out of the Storm Fund. And actually, these two projects are coming out of the Storm CFC funds, so the Storm capital dollars.
Hey,
Further down.
question
Go ahead.
on the Ruby Creek.
Yep.
And this group may not know the answer to this, but I remember something about us enlarging or increasing the length of this culvert to include a center lane. Is that still accurate?
Yes, no, our choke point right now is the culvert. It won't be a culvert when we're done with it. It'll be a small bridge or a large box culvert. And that will allow us to widen the road when we do that project. So that is part of the design so that we can get not a center turn lane there, but bike lanes and sidewalks down the two sides. There's no need to make a turn into the stream, but yes, we'll get a wider road with the
Okay.
with the amenities that we want, the sidewalks and the bike lanes.
That's the Sydney project.
It is a city project.
Sydney.
Yes, that's our Sydney. Yes, our
Sydney,
Sydney
yeah.
current Sydney non-motorized project stops there because it can't go any farther because of the creek.
That's southbound.
Yes.
Yeah, either it can be widened either direction.
No, but what I'm saying is our current city project stops southbound at that location. We're still
Yeah.
moving forward northbound.
Yeah, we're and actually we stop at the apartments because the apartments already built the sidewalk right there, and then Transit's going to build the improvements on the other side. We'll just have this gap where the stream is.
Okay. So those are the capital project amendments. Again, a big portion, $5.5 million of expense authority, with most of it being for the Bay Street reconstruction project. At this time, I don't have any amendments proposed for our working capital or stabilization for our financial policies. I tend to wait till the end of this process, so probably after the work study, to see the impact, to see if there would be any need for additional stabilization for policy or working capital. At this time, I don't believe there will be anything because the adjustments haven't been very big, they're very, very small. So I'm anticipating we won't need to make an adjustment, but I reserve that to the very end generally. Okay, so personnel requests. Mayor, do you want to walk through this, or you want me to walk through this?
I'll give it a shot, and you can correct me where I'm
Okay.
wrong. But we got a request for 3 additional police officers that would have cost with their equipment, cars, and everything about $1.3 million. We really couldn't afford to do that, so this budget proposes 1 new police officer, and that will be a patrol officer out on the street. Touched earlier on the communication specialist. We're proposing to have a new website. We need somebody to manage that project and populate the content of that. And we're going to transition away from our contract with our contract PIO officer. This person, I think, will be much more efficient and timely in the products that we put out, because this person will be at City Hall every day. There's just additional steps. When Josh is creating something, I need to review it. He can't put those posts out. Somebody in the clerk office does. So it's I think we're gonna be able to improve our communication and the timeliness of our communication. The request from Brandy was for a 0.6 employee because of the needs of the clerk department, public records requests, and all the other things that are going on in her department. When I 10 years ago became the mayor, we had 3 people in the clerk's department. At that time, COVID kind of changed our lobby traffic, and so we took one of those bodies away and pumped up the human resources department because we were doing so much hiring. I think it's time to give Brandy some more resources. And so this person's kind of going to be split duties between communication and clerks duties is kind of the idea here. Questions on that, or?
I like it.
All right. That next one is the building inspector 3, which is somebody who's a high-level building official to give us additional capacity within the plan review and inspection process over there. There's definitely we need to get more of that work done in-house and improve the customer experience over there. Additionally, the next position is we've got a part-time employee over there with no benefits. She's a really good employee. We have needs to help on the clerk and the front side of that operation over there. And so we're going to add that 70,000 represents bringing that person from a part-time employee to a full-time employee over in the Department of Community Development. In my time as the mayor, we've only added, I believe, 1 body to the finance department. In the last 10 years, we've really managed NOAA's increased workload through process improvement and technology. But with all the changes of leave policies, it creates more challenge. People are gone a lot more than historically, and that's just reality of the world we're in. So NOAA's bench needs to be a little broader because there's just need there, and the next one down is we have 3 inspectors right now, actually, and we want to make one of them a lead inspector to basically manage the inspection group. When we get the improvements done out at the new building we bought, we plan to move the inspectors all out out there, and Dennis won't be working outside Dennis's office door. So we kind of need somebody to be a supervisor of that group, and we've identified somebody to do that. We also have, if you recall, we have an engineer that's out on military leave, and he could be coming back, we think, possibly in the first quarter of next year. If he comes back, then we hired somebody back that's not an engineer to do inspection work. The volume of work there, the work is there on the development side. So this is taking that temporary employee and making that person a permanent employee. So we're adding to our inspection capacity on the public works side, which is not just our projects. That's also the roads, and the sewer and water infrastructure. When somebody does a short plat too, involves our public works department. So and that we're just not seeing a slowdown in the development activity.
Yeah, and Mayor, I think I'll just add to what you said there. I think it's important to recognize that we are funding and filling a position that we currently have. So if this position were not to be funded, we would have to let that person go. So you'd actually be reducing our current level. So we're not necessarily increasing to have another employee. We're trying to maintain status quo our current service level.
Dennis, go ahead.
Oh, and just to tag on what Noah said, when we think of that vacant right now, that engineer position that's deployed, the idea is when we have that position back, we become less reliant on our contracted engineering services that we have been. So bringing stuff back in house.
Yeah. And Noah and I talked about earlier today that these titles with the office assistant 2, accounting assistant 2, he's going to add finance, and the office assistant 2 position there is an additional office staff for Noah's operation. We don't have anybody out at the public works facilities out there at the front counter. We get deliveries. We have Jeff needs help with paying the bills and the mounds of paper that are generated in the public works department. So it's just time we've got one of those bodies here at City Hall, the front counter staff, and it's time we add somebody, out at the public works facility to perform similar function. In the public works maintenance folks out there, we're proposing to add someone to parks. We're adding someone to street, one to sewer, and one to storm. So each one of the facets out there. There was a request for 2 people in storm. The rate structure actually calls for 1.5 employees, and these union employees we don't usually hire in a part-time capacity. So we're adding 1, and so the sewer and storm pieces are being funded by the rate and the operational aspect of the utilities, and the parks and the street are being funded by our general fund. And if you go down to the ER&R bucket down there, since we only funded 1 new police officer, we only need 1 more police car. And then these are, I believe,
F-250s.
250s, have more heavy duty trucks, 1 for the sewer operation and 1 for the storm operation. So heavier duty pickups that'll be fossil fuel. So questions, that was a lot, I know.
Where do we get where do we come up with these dollars, right? So I just got to call one out, that office assistant, right? I'm looking at a similar. I can see an office assistant, a legal assistant for Kitsap County, currently listed at $49,656 per year. When I add in total costs of that, something like that should be closer to $69,000. When I add in retirement benefits, taxes, all the et cetera, where do we come up with $128,900?
The legal assistant probably is a part-time position, so they don't have to pay benefits.
And they're posting a job that doesn't include, that's the wages. It doesn't include salary, benefits, retirement. We're all in
That's why
on that.
I'm adding that. So at a 45,000 or $49,000 a year job, you're looking at $69,000 a year for total cost.
I bet it's more than that in government, unfortunately.
Well, I'm modeling that pay right now as I pull it up, right?
Yeah.
And
So-
so
so-
that's where I'm trying to get at. How do we get to those numbers? Because number one, we're not going to be able to say yes to all this, right? The dollars certainly aren't there. So I just,
Okay, so there's two facets to this. One, how we derive the salaries is done through our salary survey process, which HR just completed that last year. Okay, every 3 or 4 years, we try to make sure. So we look at these job descriptions, and then we look at our peers, and so we don't employ court clerks here. Well, we do. They're union positions, but these positions it's derived through our salary survey process and what our peers are paying. And so we need to be competitive in the job market out there. We're not paying more than anybody else is, for these positions. The positions like the office assistant, the accounting assistant, there's a cost allocation process to that. And so we look at that position and we go, okay, how much of their time is doing utility work, in the various utility funds, if they're doing streets or parks work, even on the back side of that, there's people supporting those people doing the work out in the field. So there's cost allocation process. And my earlier remarks when I spoke to the $3 million that we had in carry forward that we brought forward, any of these positions that we're funding that the need is being funded from the general fund. We're not only funding it this year, we're going to park 3 years worth of salary and benefits, because if the economy goes south on us, I don't want to hire. It's going to take me a few months to get somebody hired, a few more months where they're providing benefit to us, because we're training them. The last thing I want to do is get 6 months of work out of somebody and then have to lay them off because something happens in the economy. I think with by setting aside 3 years for the salary and benefits, if we turn into something economically long term, it'll allow us to manage the reduction in force through attrition versus layoffs. So did I answer your question?
I think you answered a lot of what was asking, but I think he was also asking, I heard you want us to verify the dollar amount is correct. So Rebecca, if you're on, I'm looking right now and it shows me roughly 76,000 of salary with roughly 48,000 of benefits. So it looks to be correct, and we'll verify that with payroll and HR. John, just make sure that is correct number.
Yeah, and John, one of the things that we take into account here is we're hiring new positions. And so one of our largest expenses is medical for the benefits side of that. And so we account for the medical plan being offered at the highest level possible or the highest cost possible when we do these proposals. But we could hire someone and end up they not need the highest or the most expensive medical plan that we offer. So maybe those costs will actually come in lower, and that's where we monitor it. So I think that makes up a large portion of like the difference from what you would see posted online as the salary to why these numbers are so much higher.
okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we
And maybe we
plan for
just
the most
need
expensive employee.
some of that detail from the background in there provided to this committee. I mean, right? So
Sure.
if I'm doing that basic back of napkin math, I'm hearing you're going to pay somebody just under $40 an hour to be an admin, an office assistant. That should be $38, $39 an hour based off of
30.
37, 36
Yeah,
and a half.
37. Okay,
36, yeah.
I'm getting there close, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is
Yep.
not the base level or entry level office assistant. This is the second tier up. So that is part of it too.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just curious. Those types of things help me understand because I don't know that I can find an office assistant in any capacity listed at almost $40 an hour.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. And again, from the budgeting perspective, we plan for the most expensive employee in that category because we don't know what we're going to get. We hope it's on the lower side because that then has some budget savings to it. But at least we're not going the other way. We're actually planning and building out a little further out a potential impact, whether to help you make an informed decision, right? Whether this could work or not.
Yeah, on that medical side too, that we could end up hiring a single person or someone that just has a spouse. But we plan for, from a budgeting standpoint, because we don't want to get caught short, that person could have 5 kids, because we've got employees with 5 and 6 kids, and that's a possibility, and we don't want to be short of the ability to pay for people's medical insurance benefits.
Yeah.
So
Brad,
we
you have
put
a
it on the
question?
high side to the
Yeah.
worst case scenario.
I would sort of echo John's concern in saying that the accountant assistant 3 and office assistant 2, in my opinion, would be among the more vulnerable or / questionable hires. I mean, looking at the list as a whole. But my other thought is that since they're funded from different funds and they're not all from the general fund, that makes me more comfortable with staffing them.
I would just, since you called out the finance office assistant 3 as the more susceptible hire, I would just again reiterate that we haven't added staff to this department where DCD has almost doubled in size. Public has doubled in size. PD, we try to add when we can. So we've tried to be as smart and efficient with software, and we're just at capacity. We needing human beings in the office now to help us redistribute the workload and get us back to moving us forward, maybe another few years.
And maybe providing some of that story to us, right? I think that would be a better story for the full council to understand when was the last time we added or we lost somebody that we didn't replace, right? I know the mayor and I can talk about banking, for instance. Branches used to have 20 plus people in them, and now you can run an entire branch on 2 people. And some of them could be 1, but they have dual control and things like that. So in fact, I went from having 3 people in a business office at my business here. I've completely eliminated all 3 of those positions because all of it can be done by software now.
Takes 3 people though, because sometimes somebody's got to go to the bathroom. Then you lose dual control. Mark?
Yeah, I just, I just want to voice my concern on the conservative side. We've heard now a couple of different times, and I think John, and in my business anyways, we've seen the uncertainty in the economy. Seems like we're putting a lot of people out there, and I can appreciate that. We need to increase our awareness. We need to increase our customer experience. We need to do a better job with those folks that are looking for help, and we need to support our staff members and our departments and department heads. But it seems like a lot of staff members in a time of uncertainty in our economy. So I'm just voicing my concern over that right there. I like what I'm seeing, and I appreciate what I'm hearing. I'm just concerned about that.
Yeah. And Mark, you know how conservative I am. You've been around the council for a number of years, and you, Fred, also. That's why I made my early remarks. And why we're parking excess. We need to provide a better customer experience across the board. And that's why virtually everybody's getting a little bit of something. Everybody has a need. We're all pedaling as fast as we can, and it's not fast enough. And we're hearing it time and time again. I had multiple conversations with people today about their permits or other things that are taking too long. And the only way I can solve that is to put resources to it. And I too have been concerned about the economy. And that's why I made my early remarks that we have cash. We can afford to do this. I too am concerned about the sustainability of it. And that's why I don't want to be the next Bremerton or Bainbridge Island or what Kitsap County is dealing with right now. And that's why we're parking additional monies to carry us through a short-term downturn if that's where the economy goes. Because you guys are seeing it. You're on this committee. Our revenues have gone flat.
Yep.
We're succeeding because of our growth. And those are the people though that are crying the loudest, and rightly so, because they've paid us good money to process their permit for their project, and we're not performing, and we need to.
Well, I'd also like to add, we're also succeeding because of the conservative nature of how the city's been ran.
Yeah.
From your standpoint, Noah's done a great job with that as well. That's why we're able to sit here and look at some of these and add these folks when other jurisdictions around us aren't able to do that.
Yeah. Thank you for that. You are correct. And I'm surrounded by a phenomenal team.
Yeah, and I just want to make sure that that was clear to the finance committee, because I think that's an important point that the mayor, as a part of his recommendation to approve these positions, he asked us to put in a set aside for these personnel requests to get us through 27 and 2028. And so that value is built into ending fund balance. So what that means is we have, yeah, we'll come back to John because I want to make sure that is clear. So in the fund balance here, let me illustrate this real quick. If I can go to the income statement. So in the general fund, for example, we have a projected ending fund balance of $9.8 million. Of that, 3 million is roughly for our working capital policy, and another 2 million is part of this request from the mayor to set aside for 27, 28 the impact of this personnel request. So what that means is that we can employ and we can ensure that we'll have funds there to meet this request for the next biennial budget. And this is something we have done almost every time we've added employees. We kind of set aside some cash to ensure that we could maintain them as an employee and carry that forward and commit to that employee really for at least 2 or 3 years, barring a flat, stagnant economy. So I think that's an important point to kind of discuss with this group and make sure that this group understands that that is embedded into these operation of funds. There is a slight set aside in that fund balance.
I see Dennis has got his hand raised.
Yeah, he had his hand up before I did, so go for it, Dennis.
I just wanted to take on, you kind of passed this already, but tonight I'm going to give some amazing news, or the mayor's going to give some amazing news and an update. And when you see the outreach campaign, these are the people, these office assistant positions, they're the ones that are driving that. They're our first touch with our citizens. When you guys hear about problems that are like correctable and preventable, these are the frontline folks that are getting it done. And it's probably one of my biggest priorities of my asks. So I'll leave it at that.
So
I don't want you to hear that we don't want to do these.
I
want
know,
you to
no,
hear
I
that we
understand.
I want accurate numbers. I want accurate things because I want to make sure that we're deploying as much of this as possible. My follow-up question, Noah, before you go any further, because if you know me, you know I'm going 3 steps, or at least I'm trying to go 3 steps ahead. If you go further back up into that, we have over budget right now. We're sitting $423,000 over our current budget. So that was eaten up on stuff that we've trued up already in the first year. When you go back to the first page of this ask,
Are you talking about, sorry, were you on the income statement?
I was all the way up to the top.
Okay.
actually, it was the other document, Noah, the true up.
Yeah, sorry. Your other document that basically has
Where we were just worked, but at the top
Oh.
of it,
At the top.
the true ups.
the true ups.
Oh, okay. The cleanup.
So
Okay.
you're on your true ups on your first page of that. When we get down to that, it's 400 some odd at the bottom.
Okay.
497. So that basically takes care of what we already have over budgeted for 2025, right? Because we're overperforming to where we're at today. And so I'm going at and I'm looking at some of these other, whether it's capital at 5 million, these new personnel. Help me understand where that dollar is coming from, because when I go to the top of the enterprise fund, where you were just at, the top page you were there, I am showing that we originally had, wherever you're at, right? Like we're not doing any better in any of these fund balances at the end than we had started.
Well, and John, we have minimum reserve requirements. We shouldn't be saving people's money. We collect taxes and fees to perform services. And so
you're getting there with me. So let me finish my ask with
Okay.
Noah. I think what I'm asking, and for you to bring this out to council, is for you to break down where your new spend dollars are and from what bucket, so that it's in a cleaner format than what we're seeing today?
Well, when we get to the,
Okay, I want to just pause
Are
on this
you
for a second.
following my logic?
yeah.
I
and we're-
hear what you're saying. It gets a little spaghetti-ish.
Yeah,
And-
it
and that-
probably will, but and there are going to be parts that you can pull out and parts that you can't. Because what I'm trying to say is I need you to make a separate dollar ask out of the capital stuff than you do out of your operating, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but John, what you guys got, this deep dive, you guys, this presentation looks completely different next Tuesday.
Okay.
It's pretty
okay.
much a one pager with, we're going to do the revenue hearing tonight, and here's the request. You guys are the ones that dive into the weeds on this.
Okay.
And when we come to the rest of the council, here is the mid, the format will change a little bit every year, but here are the true ups, and the items that were part of the mid-year review, the original budget that we said we would kick forward to the mid-year review, like the website and other things. Like there was a lot of them that didn't get funded in this budget. Okay, then there's going to be the personnel requests, and then there's going to be a line things that the mayor didn't fund. Okay, there was a few there, and then I teed up, I think, to you some things that I think that there's going to be
we haven't
some
got there yet.
lines for this is what the council finance committee recommended, not only to fund these things, but they want to see this too.
Yep.
Okay, and so it tries to be a one pager, it turns into about a two pager. And so we'll line item each one of the things and what they cost, but they aren't going to get the same level of detail that you get, because we'd be there for 4 hours.
Okay, so you at least get my sentiment somewhat, and then to more clarify exactly, but I'll take that maybe and follow up with Noah.
Yeah, I guess we could add a box to that chart to show general fund or capital dollars, or if you're wanting to know the source, is that what's concerning you?
I think it's a little bit of source in what is the add versus where we were at. Because again, when I'm looking at this, and you look at the totals of each one of these sections and you start adding the dollar amounts, you're like, but we're not gaining that much revenue. And really, how much are we draining of what fund? And again, I think somewhat back to my original statement, if I knew what our goal balance on each fund is, I'd know what's technically available for us to deploy,
So
etc.
so remember though, the operational funds have reserve requirements, the capital doesn't. And so, and I spoke to you early on, we got $3 million we're bringing forward. This is what we've identified. It's going largely into that road project. And so a big hit is happening to the traffic impact fee fund, which is a capital fund. And we should be expending it that way. And then there's the elements from the different utility capital funds that are funding their fair share of that. The water line in Bay Street wasn't in our capital plan. Okay, there actually was a line item in the prior budget for $200,000. When we started the biennium, the fund couldn't afford it. So that's why that didn't get funded. And so that's why this project is pulling general fund dollars, which remember, the biggest portion of that came from interest earnings. All of our fund balances earned interest, and we didn't budget those. So we're clawing those into this budget and spending those.
May I just because in the sake of time here, it's 4:47, and I want John, are you requesting a document that identifies the expense by fund and the revenue that would cover that?
I believe so. I believe that's probably at least the changes that we're purporting to change in the budget.
Okay, I can try to pull something like that together. And again, I want to go back to this income statement because this gives you all the impacts, right? Because some of this is cost allocated, so that's where I say it becomes spaghetti. If I say, well, $10 is really going to go to this fund, $10 is going to go to that fund, and there's 100 different GLs for this one activity. But I will see if I can create something that identifies the expense request by fund and the proposed revenue that offset, whether it be new revenue or fund balance.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. Is that
I
fair?
think that last part is the key part, is identifying if it's new revenue or if we're just taking it out of fund balance, and
Okay.
or then knowing if it is out of a fund balance, can we somewhere in this view that I'm looking at right now, if it's a fund balance that has a minimum requirement,
Yep.
and or if this, it doesn't even care if it has to be minimum, maybe this committee wants to decide everything should have a minimum, even though it's not required. Maybe that makes us feel better. I don't know, but I think that's a policy question for
Yeah.
this.
John, I really believe that a capital fund having a fund balance requirement would be a poor policy, because
Well, I do too, but maybe they aren't all that way, right? I don't know, but
yeah,
something to
and
look
I
at.
can assure you, other than the water operations, we are meeting or exceeding all of our capital requirements.
I don't have any worry about us doing it. I want to know what's really available to us, and are we deploying as much as humanly possible?
Yeah.
I believe probably we are, but again, calling that out for us helps us
Yeah.
make this
Okay.
decision-making process.
So I think I got those notes, John. I'll see what I can
Thank you.
scratch together for you. And then since we only got about 11 minutes here, I want to I've skipped over the transfers because it does more of a accounting thing. You can look through if you like. Real quickly, I just want to touch on the revenue adjustments. Again, not a whole lot of time, but you can see we got some grants coming in. So John, in the example you set, I would identify the Annapolis design dollars, grant money 425, local dollars, the other portion. I'll try to connect that a little tighter. Okay. So I think that's what I heard you would be helpful.
Yep.
And then you can see here on this revenue tab, again, you guys have all these documents. These are adjustments we're making on reduction of revenues. So again, criminal justice high crime, we're just not a high crime city anymore, so we don't receive that revenue. Utility taxes have been declining, and our television tax is declining, so decline source there. These are the additions. So again, I captured 300,000 of that budget overage. Again, we said we were roughly 430,000 over budget year to date. We anticipate if we stay on pace, we'll be able to capture that $300,000 of sales tax revenue to help cover some of these asks. And then here are the other kind of revenue true ups that we're just kind of identifying that we are on track or ahead of where we budgeted, so we can capture those revenues to bring them in. So this is the part where it might be a little tricky to say all the, a particular expense out of general fund is going to be paid for from amusement and games, right? Because it's just going to be the compilation of all the revenue. So that's where it might get a little tricky. The ones where I can directly call out are going to be like those grant and loan ones, because they're just, dollar for dollar tied. But you'll see all the revenue impacts in here. Does that make sense, John? Because you see, I want you to see why it's going to be a little tricky and spaghetti to say this is the exact revenue source. I can say here's the general fund adjustments that would cover these expenses, and that gets us closer, I think. So you have those two documents, revenue adjustments, and then again, revenue and ENR is more transactional, it's more accounting wise. So it's pretty much everything we've already talked about, just the accounting side of it coming into the ENR fund. Now, since we got 9 minutes, I wanted to circle back. So I kind of went through a lot. I did include a capital projects presentation. We don't have to go through it because I want to get to anything that you guys would like to ask to be included prior to next week's discussion. If there's additional costs, I do want to identify a couple things, at least from the operational standpoint. We talked with Brandy, our prosecuting attorney's contract. We just got notified that it has gone up. So we're, again, this coming to us just off the press. So we'll need to add additional $24,000 in 2025 and $23,000 in 2026. So I'll make an adjustment to the materials you guys have seen to capture that. We talked about AWC. There might be adjustment there to capture that additional insurance. We have talked about briefly an LPR system, a license plate reader system, a piece of equipment to go on top of the vehicle. So we wouldn't go around chalking tires, but we'd actually use the camera to scan the license plate, and then they'd drive around the city, come back, scan again, know if it's a violator. The technology also then can identify any stolen vehicles and those kind of things and notify, our police department. So it would give us a broader reach with our parking enforcement to go further throughout the city and do more parking enforcement. What we heard was council wanted more parking enforcement in McCormick. So this would allow us to do that because the camera reader will do a lot faster than someone getting out of the car and chalking, and then come back and doing that same thing. So I might try to get a little LPR money in there for your consideration. And then with that, is there anything that you guys would like us to consider? Now, if I go back to just overall high level, what money do we have available? We do have 9 million currently. 3 million is going to be for that working capital, 2 million for the set aside for the employees. So there's roughly 3 to 4 million there of cash that could be available. Now I've already clawed back, 50,000, almost 100,000 of that once I add in those adjustments. So you still have roughly $3 million in there. Now I wouldn't say go spend that all now because we're going to need that presumably for other projects and things in the next biennial budget. But I just want to kind of circle back to what you were saying, John, is like, how do you know? And I'm going to try to talk you through that for if you have any requests. In particular, LTAC, I think, was a topic that I should have noted, but we originally had requested to make part of this fund balance, a larger part of this fund balance for the personnel for the community event center. So this budget does have moving an additional 80,000 that would get us up to, I think, $250,000 set aside for a person for the community event center once that comes online. But that is embedded in this 472, which means that the other 222 is cash available for additional requests as we kind of move forward. So I just want to call those. Yep.
Noah touched on that too, that fund balance. Remember, in 2027, we have 3 very large projects coming forward that we know are going to cost more than we've anticipated. We got the community center, we got Bethel Phase 1, and we've got that water intertie. So we need to there is some money to play with to do something a little more, but we need to be conscious of that. Those additional needs are going to be in the millions on every one of those projects, and we'll just have to work through that as we get our final cost estimates for them.
So, because we're talking about any of those debts, I'll just throw out 2 quick things. We don't have to talk about them ad nauseum here, but I do know we had talked about, and I think we still have some information coming from Miss Archer around beautification grants that we talked about. And so we may want to dog ear some funds to be able to deploy that. I think that's still coming before the end of the year here that she's giving us that information.
She provided, I gave you guys the memo she provided.
Okay.
So that gives us the framework.
So I don't know that we've actually digested it or had it as a topic for anything.
I agree with you. You should, if you want to move forward with that, you should call out some dollars for that. I don't know what that number is. Is it 50, 75? Is it 100? I don't know. That's for you guys to decide. You asked for some outreach to the building owners, and Nick's team is going to do that. I would suspect shortly after the first of the year, I will have that outreach. I've done a little bit myself to some building owners, so of what some of their needs are or what they would like to see. But you asked for something more, and we're going to do that. But once that body of work's done, then all of a sudden, well, yeah, I want to do this, but we didn't bake any money into the budget. So we should probably bake, a little bucket of dollars, for that.
I would love to see that to be at $100,000. I don't know if that's reasonable this first go or if we're going to have that deployed. My thoughts are, I think we should be doing something to the tune of almost 10 grand a month, etc. But maybe. So I'll just throw that out there. Additionally, we saw a body of work at the EDT meeting yesterday from our consultant, actually Josh, who with Serotonin, who also works with Love Kitsap and is doing some LTAC work for us, including just getting ready for FIFA next year. We talked about putting out some additional picnic tables and things out along the waterfront, as well as maybe even some art to draw some folks towards. So I'd like to see maybe some dollars allocated to that as well.
And that's probably depending on the scale of it. At a bare minimum, just for the benches and some modest stuff, you're probably talking 50. If you want a couple of murals downtown, that number could double to 100 grand, you know, to waterfront beautification. Mark knows one picnic bench is about $7,000 anymore. I think we want a handful of picnic tables, nice garbage cans. I was just down walking the waterfront today, and that new observation deck could easily have a picnic table and a couple of benches inside of it. And you're probably at $25,000 right there just for that one location. So it's up to you. I think on the generous side, I think it's probably 100 grand again.
I think it'd be nice if council had the chance to do a wish list, so everyone can maybe throw out the items they want. I have
Yeah.
to throw out one that I heard from a resident, which is supposedly a noise activated camera that can both capture license plates and write tickets.
Yeah.
I don't know if it
Yeah.
exists, but I just wanted to throw it out there. It might be something
Yeah.
to, I know you're shaking your head, but I just had to mention it.
Yeah.
If
So-
it did exist and worked, it would be a
Yeah.
nice investment.
The speed cameras, the cameras that we can use can only be deployed in a school zone or near a park. And the areas that we get the complaints for that's not where we get our complaints, unfortunately. But I think we're looking for that's the job of this community. I mean, the full council gets to weigh in on this too, but I think Noah and I are looking for you guys to give us some recommendations, some things you as the finance committee would like to see. And I think we've heard the one that John is the building,
Beautification.
I don't know what we're gonna call that, whatever we're gonna call that, and then the other one for FIFA and what level, and then I think there's also, we saw two different asks in that, or recommendations, I guess, in that presentation yesterday. One is probably going to take 30 or 35 or 40,000 in lodging tax dollars that are eligible from a marketing standpoint, and the other is just making our down waterfront, where we're wanting to have these visitors for FIFA, more inviting.
Well, and that would go along with the beautification program that John was speaking to a little earlier.
I think they're two different things, Mark. I think there's one is a city initiative. We're going to go do this. It's our property. The other is a building owner wanting to beautify his building and his storefront, and we're going to provide a grant program for that probably requires a match on their side. So I think it's two buckets of
90%
dollars.
match.
Okay.
Yeah, at least 2 accounting employees. Like you're gonna start a grant program. Just gonna throw that out there. Great ideas.
Yeah, but somebody's got to manage the grant, Noah's pointing out.
Well, and I'm not going to do anything sexy. I'm going to stick with where I've stuck with for a while, and that's laying down pavement, fixing potholes, cleaning sidewalks. That's all public work stuff. And Dennis just shut off his camera because he's running out of the door, I'm sure. But those type of things.
Charlie needs to be let her in real quick. Sorry.
Our just joking, Dennis. Our citizens they value and they appreciate when they see potholes being filled, when they see spider-webbed streets that haven't had pavement on them for 30 years get a little 1-inch coating or whatever it takes to go over the top of them. That's important. And Dennis mentioned earlier, we have miles more roadway that has recently been in the last 5 to 10 years. And, every day that we sit here and talk, that roadway is aging. So I'd always love to see more money put towards our street repairs and maintenance.
Yeah. We will be able to do some more, Mark, with the addition, we're seeing dividends to the segregation where we've created some silos, streets, parks, sewer storm, so that it's not an all, because what happens historically is the water line breaks and everybody's all hands on decks. And we don't, and sometimes that still needs to be the case, particularly when it's sewer running down the ditch. But by having dedicated folks to do streets, there's some ownership. We're adding some dollars to that, a body, to help us with those activities. But as far as the paving activity, every biennium we put north of $1 million into that. That paving activity was this year. I just be honest with you, if you gave us another $1 million to pave, we still need folks to manage. We've got so much activity. We gear that up as an every other year cycle, and you guys gave us a big chunk of money that we deployed this year, and we're going to do other things this next year. But as far as paving, roads, we did that. We are going to see a new, I guess, paved road, and that is Bay Street this next year, completely reconstructing it. So we are investing in our streets, I guess is what I'm trying to reassure you.
Oh, you don't have to reassure me, Rob. I wasn't terribly happy with what we ended up with this last year. We just went through a very long period of time here in this meeting looking at how costs have increased, gas has increased, everything's increased. We did not increase our pavement expenditures as that much to keep up with the rest of the cost increases. So, I'm not unhappy with it. I'm just going to be looking for more when we're running our next budget process. I'll
Right.
tell you in advance.
Yeah. I can assure you the mayor's budget will have more than $1 million in paving in it.
So we're over time a little bit, but that's all the materials I've planned. I talked about trying to do some additional materials for next week's workspace session. I just want to confirm, because this would be the time to make sure I understand what additional requests you would like me to put into the proposal so we can see the impact of the funds. I heard a couple things. I heard John talk about benches or beautification. I'm not sure if there was a number there you wanted to see, John, and how that would impact. Freddie, you talked about a noise camera, and I don't know if those exist, or if we would have time to go pull that research and actually look at the software to support that, and plus admin support. That one might be a little more cumbersome, just from our experience of trying to get other camera supported work. It's quite the process. But is there anything specifically that the finance committee would like to see added as a recommendation? I heard something about beautification, waterfront benches, murals. John?
You got a dollar amount, John? Throw it out there.
I'm just gonna say 100 for both. I'm aiming for the stars, so anything you can get me from there, great.
And what about the lodging tax? That's the other one. You wanting that more than the 100,000? I think we can afford it.
I mean, so if
Well, that still have to go through the lodging tax process, right? So I don't know when that starts up because the
Soon.
tax we have to make the
well, tonight we're we're appointing my committee, and then we're going to start business after we appoint that committee. So,
Oh, okay.
it-
Okay,
it-
tonight you're going to
it's
commit.
that
Yeah, so you're going to
time,
start right.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
I mean, if we think we're going to do all the art and the benches stuff out of LTAC, I mean,
That's not out of LTAC. That's
Okay.
out of general fund.
okay, then
That generally parking
But
lot.
Josh
I'm
had
looking
it,
for an
that marketing activities.
additional 35 in LTAC.
Now, is that going to be, John, are you looking at that as a 1-year FIFA type of addition, or is that going to be an ongoing thing after that?
1 year.
Okay.
Right. We have some things that we're going to want Love Kitsap to do for us for FIFA,
Sure.
and then the regular asks, which is about $100,000 that we get
Yeah.
from the normal folks. So
Okay.
And Fred, I'm happy to talk to you more about the camera situation.
okay. Yeah, no,
The chief did some analysis on where we could put cameras and where we can't, and it unfortunately doesn't address where we're getting the complaints.
he should do a blog post. That would be good. And I want to echo what Mark said about roads, because I'm hearing from a lot of people that Sydney south of Lippert is terrible to drive on. And I did drive on it, and I was thinking, that could be a traffic calming thing that we do. We just let some of the roads get really Warren,
Okay,
because you can't go more
that's a
than 50
temporary
miles per hour.
situation because of the construction.
No, but on Sydney south of Lippert, it is pretty bad.
Yes, I know. I
And
drove
we know
today.
that. Yeah, we know that, but it would be nice if we had, this is your 2026 block of improvement or something.
Yeah. Anything else? Noah's looking to wrap this up. Any other? We've heard about our streets as those are likely going to. The big lift will be in the next biennial budget on that. Other than, I mean, we are putting $11 million in a road, in this budget, proposed budget.
Good.
No, I think it's time to move on, Noah.
Okay. And the materials themselves, is that sufficient for our work study? And again, I'll try to create another document for our discussion. Because I think, again, next week we'll walk through this with the whole council, but I'm hoping the finance committee has a much firmer understanding of the proposal. Again, take your time, look through the income statement, look at the impact to each fund. And I think the requests were pretty much what we want them to be, not a new budget, just some minor adjustments here, other than the capital impact, which is, the $11 million road that has a large impact on this proposal. And we'll kind of feather that out a little clearer. Okay. Well, that's all I had. I
All
think.
right. So it's now about 10 after 5. Let's go ahead. If no one has anything for the good of the order, let's go ahead and close out this meeting, and we'll look forward to seeing everybody, except for maybe Rebecca, here in about an hour and a half.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Noah.
you.
Thank you,
See you
Rebecca.
guys.
Hi,
Mr.
everyone.
Mayor,